people can predict if a president is going to be successful by what he accomplished in the first 3 months or 100 days. Okay, we'll delve into this a little bit. We're going to start talking about some of these New Deal measures to solve the issue of unemployment. First of all, was that a problem at the end of the Depression? Big problem, okay? So, we're going to talk about New Deal measures to solve the issue of unemployment. Does anybody remember? I'd be impressed how many million Americans were out of work when we talked the last time? 12. Very good. 12 million. Now, by the time Roosevelt actually took office, that had swelled to 14 million. So at the time that he took office, our unemployment was setting at 14 million people that were out of work in the United States. And so the Roosevelt administration immediately launched a program of what we call direct relief for Americans. These are these laws I'm talking about that he passed. And the first one was called the Federal Emergency Relief Act, or FARA for short. The Federal Emergency Relief Act, also known as FARA, F-E-R-A. Now basically what it did in capsule is it distributed more than $3 billion to needy Americans. It distributed nearly $3 billion to needy Americans. And I'll tell you how that happened.
So then did the U.S. still, was the U.S. still doing decent financially to the government, or did they have to borrow?
They're due a little bit of both. They're going to borrow though. They're going to have a deficit. I think our deficit right now is, I don't know how many $trillion. If you ran your checkbook like this country runs its checkbook, you'd be in the poorhouse. But anyway, now here's how this worked, this FARA. This $3 billion was actually given to individual states, which allowed the state and local governments to use the money as they chose. And there was two things they could choose to do with the money. So this $3 billion was given to individual states, depending on what? The amount? Population, okay? And the state and local governments then could choose to use the money as they wished. They had two choices. They could either give direct relief or provide jobs. That's what they used the money for. Direct relief or providing jobs. Now, one time in this country, early during this period, there were about 8 million families that were on direct relief. What is direct relief? There you go. There's no jobs out there. Get yourself a pop today because you can't get a job in Moreland. There isn't any out there. Or they could take the money and they could spend it to do what? Create jobs. Maybe invest in a factory in which people could be employed. Most Americans, unlike today, frankly, didn't want direct relief. They wanted to earn money. And so they made it pretty clear. And so when Americans stated that, the government made arrangements to move away from the direct relief and move more towards creating jobs. Okay? And as a result of that, in 1935, the Roosevelt administration created something called the Work Progress Administration. The Work Progress Administration. And they named Harry L. Hopkins as the director of the Work Progress Administration. So as a result of the people speaking, saying, hey, we're really not into this direct relief, we'd rather have jobs, in 1935 the Roosevelt administration created the Work Progress Administration, and they named Harry L. Hopkins as the director of that organization. And the Work Progress Administration received $6.3 billion from Congress to create jobs. And I'm going to give you 3 examples of how they did that. Okay, so the WPA, or Works Progress Administration, was given a $6.3 billion giving, here you go, in funds from Congress to create jobs. And here's some of the things they did.
Well, you said Farrah got 3 billion, right?
What's that?
Farrah had 3 billion.
Yep. Now, if you look around this country, and now some of them are knocked down, we're one of the oldest high schools, I think 1965, and rather than build a new one, we choose to fix this one up, because if we chose to build a new one, they would build it for 400 kids, not the 800 that it was originally built for, which means the school would be much smaller. So we choose to fix this one up. Well, there is a ton of school construction during this time in history. New schools were either built during this time or they were repaired. So the WPA took some of that 6.3 billion and they put it into school construction, whereas new schools were built across this country or they were fixed up. And who fixed them and built them? Workers. Okay, workers. Another thing that was built in, as many as 5,000 communities across the United States at this time were sewage plants. Okay, they built over 5,000 sewage plants. You know what those are? That's a place where your sewage goes and gets properly disposed of, so to speak. Okay, well, when they built those 5,000 sewage plants across this country, they put a lot of people to work. And you know what else did they fix around the country that always needs fixing? And it's roads. Very good. We had no interstate yet. The interstate comes in with President Eisenhower. So about 128,000 miles of what we call secondary roads were being constructed or improved. So a lot of the roads maybe around Worland that have been here forever might have been a result from this secondary road construction as a result of the WPA in 1935. Now, by March of 1936, they estimated about 4 million Americans were working for the WPA. 4 million. So that took a little bit of a chunk out of that 14 that were not working. So they estimated that by March of 1936, about 4 million Americans were working for the WPA. Did it solve all the problems? No, because this was a time of concern and education, because a lot of young Americans were forced to leave high school and college because what? They were broke, they had no food, they had no clothing, they had no housing. Okay, my father was an example of that. He was born in 1927. He only went to the 8th grade. A lot of people only went to the 8th grade. That's why we still celebrate 8th grade graduation, which I'm thinking is maybe the weirdest thing ever. And it doesn't make any sense to me, but that's where that started, kids, because people didn't finish school. My dad went to the 8th grade, and what did he go do? Went and got a job to help his family. So a lot of young Americans at this time did not stay in high school or college, didn't even go to college, because they lacked food or clothing, or were homeless. And there were thousands of young Americans. A lot of these 14 million unemployed were young Americans. Youth out of high school age, or possibly college age. Now tomorrow I'm going to talk about 3 other agencies that were established to bring work to young Americans. All very, very important in our country, and we'll kind of continue from there. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to kind of show you some of the things that went on, some of the things I saw in D.C. I will tell you this, when you've been there as many times as I've been there, I didn't really run to all the things I would take you to, because I'm going to go there again.